is Clemens Schotte. I'm with Microsoft in the Netherlands. And this talk we're going to explore a little bit about ASP.NET Core 1.0. ASP.NET, of course, you already know, but ASP.NET Core is a little bit different. What is ASP.NET Core? Previously we called it ASP.NET 5, but I think that was the wrong name, because then you think, that's the next version. But ASP.NET Core is something different, because we started from scratch. It's open source, multi-platform, and of course it is built on C# and the technology used in the .NET framework, but it is something we starting from fresh and is by definition different than ASP.NET framework. So in a nutshell, what do you get if you are starting with ASP.NET Core is that it is open source, it is multi-platform, so you can run it of course on Windows but also on a Macintosh, on the Linux distributions. You can choose your own code editor or debugger, what kind of tool you want. It is modular, so all kinds of packages are shipped with NuGet packages. So if you develop an ASP.NET Core application, you don't need to install a complete framework on your server. So you only ship your application, and the application you build, if you compile it, all the libraries and code that is used, that will be shipped with your application. So if you have multiple ASP.NET Core applications running on the same server, they don't bite each other because they have their own separate runtime and don't need a complete framework installed on the server. Most big companies don't allow to upgrade to a newer version of .NET Framework. So if you're using ASP.NET Core, you don't have the trouble upgrading because it's only your application that is running and there's no framework installed on your server. The last thing, it is very, very fast. You don't install the complete framework on your server, but it's only your application is running and it's only the code that you are using that is available in the application. So, for example, if you have an application built and that is only serving HTTP static files and don't do anything with logging or other kind of things you're normally using in the .NET Framework, it's not there. So, because it is not there, so you have no penalty in performance. This is a chart for, you can see how performance-wise ASP.NET Core is moving forward. It's still in development, of course. You can see last year we started, we were quicker than ASP.NET Full Framework 4.6. Of course we were a little bit quicker than Node.js, but now if you move forward in the time, you can see that you can handle a lot of requests with ASP.NET Core. So if you move to ASP.NET Core, you will gain a lot of performance for your application without doing a lot of changes. So if you compare ASP.NET with the full framework and the core, then we have the .NET framework that is, I think, around more than 10 years now, more than 16 years now, and that is started with web forms, and then we had MVC, and we added all kinds of features to the framework, and of course web APIs is also one of the things, but those three basic components are not working together, they are separate things. If you move to the ASP.NET Core part, then we integrated all kinds of stuff together. So the MVC and the web API are part of the ASP.NET Core libraries. And of course it will run on multiple platforms. If you choose to run your ASP.NET Core on top of .NET Core and will be running on, of course, Windows, Mac and Linux. But you can still also run ASP.NET Core on top of the full framework, and then the penalty you get is that it is not multi-platform, but then you can still use legacy libraries and code that is maybe not compatible yet with the .NET Core framework. So where do we start? Now, that's very easy, because the only thing that we need is a computer with an internet connection, and we come to .NET. Basically, say .NET, but so you can choose between 3 versions of the .NET platform. If you develop in Windows applications, you go for the full .NET framework that are you using maybe today. If you want to make cross-platform server applications, then you're using the middle part for .NET Core. And if you want to make mobile-friendly multi-platform application for iOS and Android, then you use Xamarin. That's also based on the family of .NET. But in this case, we're going to use .NET Core 1.0. But I don't have anything installed on my machine. Yeah, of course, in my machine yet. But if you don't have and you want to try it out, you scroll a little bit lower, and then you can see that you have like C# code, and you can still run it, and it will be compiled in the cloud, and the result will be visible here in this small window. So if you want to start with ASP.NET Core and C#, you can try it out basically in your browser without installing anything. You can choose different examples, or you can change your own code here. But when we go to download, it's only a download from 30 megabytes, and it's the SDK that will be installed on your machine. Well, when I come to download it, the website will detect which framework you need, because I'm on Windows, I get the Windows version, but if you're using it on a Mac or Linux machine, it will download the different SDKs. Now, when you are installed the framework, then you can find it in program files, .NET, SDK, and you see that I have like 2 different versions on this machine now available. This is only needed for development time, and it's not needed if you want to distribute your end application to what kind of server. So this is only needed for development time, and after compile time you get one like executable or DLL that you can publish to a server to run. Or maybe you can use not to publish a DLL, but maybe you want to use Docker. Maybe Docker containers is something you want to use. That's also possible in this case. If I have time left, I will try to show you a little bit how to do that with Docker. Now, if we have installed this, then we can use .NET Core. And it is basically a command line tool. So I do .NET, and I see that I have version 1, and it's a patched version, so I have 1.0.1 that's installed on my machine. So basically you can use ASP.NET Core from a command line. This tool is now running in this DOS box. When you are going to use it on a Linux or a Mac machine, the command line tooling is exactly the same. Basically, every line of code we have written in a .NET Core is for more than 90% the same for all the different platforms. Only 10% of the code base is a little bit different, because we need to have, of course, platform-specific code, and it's, I think it was 6% for Linux and 4% for Mac, or maybe vice versa, and the other 90% is the same code base for ASP.NET Core. So now I need to run or make a new application. So I'm going to create a directory. I do that in my desktop. let's call it a hello world. So this directory is empty when I change. So this directory is empty. So I want to create a starting project, and I can do that with .NET new. And basically it will create two different files. A broken C# file and a project.json file. Now I can look in it and see my Hello World application. This is only code. I have no Visual Studio, I have no other tools available in this moment, so I want to try to run this. But how does .NET Core know how to run this application? Now what we need to do is basically use NuGet packages to add libraries to it, because we are using console.writeline. Console.writeline is based in the system library, so we use NuGet packages to download those functionality. And we do that by running the .NET restore command, and it will be not compiling but downloading the NuGet packages. I already did that in the past, so it is cached, so we will not doing that every time, of course. Now my project is a little bit different because I now have the libraries with it, and now I can run it. .NET run, and it will be saying hello world. Yeah, hello world, cool. What you can see is that if I use my project, you see that I have a bin folder, but in the bin folder there will be not the end result, that is the application that I want to run. So if this application is finished and I want to publish it, I need to do .NET publish, and then it will be compiled and be ready for publishing, and then you have the DLL that you can use to use on a different machine. But using only this DOS-box is not that fancy, so I am going to use Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is also free, open source, and multi-platform, and smear code editor. You have, of course, also a debugger with it. And I zoom a little bit in so that you can see on the back what you can do. So I have my program. I have color highlighting available. I have my project.json file that is basically saying what kind of application this is and what kind of libraries and dependencies and tools you need for this application to run. So you can see that we are using .NET Core app in this case, and we have no real dependencies in this application. Now, when I want to change something in this application, Hello World 2, I need to save it, go back here, do .NET Run again, and then it will be say Hello World 2. But that is not the best way to develop, because then you need to change between Visual Studio Code and your DOS-box and vice versa. And that's not very handy. Especially when you are developing a website, then you want to make a change and you see the result in your browser. And you don't want to compile it every time. So what we can do is we can install tooling that is called a watcher. And a watcher that will handle the changes in files and do the compiling on the background. So what we can do is we go to the internet, we search for .NET Core watcher, and then there will be some code you can find. Let's see, I think it is the first one. I have also here in my favorites to be sure. And basically we only need one line of code to add to my project file. And I'm going to do that. In my project file, I can add libraries that is used by your application runtime. And you can add tooling, and tooling is only used when you are developing, like compiling, etc., etc. So I'm going to add, let's see, between here. So this tooling is the .NET Watcher tool. And now I need to restore, because it is a NuGet package. You see that he will download the Watcher tool. And now when I do .NET run, then it will be running one time. But when I do watch run, it does the same what I did before, so it will be saying hello world 2. But the second time, when I change something in my program and make it like 3, I do save. Let's do it this way so we can see what is happening. So when I do save, without doing anything, it will be compiled in the background and we see the result, like hello world 2. So this mechanism is in the basic what you need when you're going to develop a web application. Because you want to develop something and you want to see the result in your browser. Now, what we're missing in this application is only in console. It is only a command line application that is doing nothing with the web browser or any HTTP requests. So what we need is a web server. ASP.NET Core has a built-in web server. It's called Kestrel. Kestrel is also open source and that will be available for Mac, Linux and Windows. And you use that to run this console app with the Kestrel web browser, web server, and then you can serve with your Microsoft Edge or Chrome or other web browser to the URL, and you serve the results to the end user. So I need to create a web application, so I will quit this very simple demo. What we're going to do now is create a new one. So we do .NET new. In this case, we want not a console app, but we want to have from the type web app. So it will creating a lot of more files for me. So this is still the basic stuff we are using in the example I used before, but now it will using the Kestrel web server to serve your website. So we still do .NET restore, and then it will go to the internet and download a lot of new NuGet packages you need to run this example. But depending on the speed of the internet, sometimes depends a little bit of time. It's quick enough. So you can see that he now is finished, and then we do run. And then by default it will be running on localhost port 5000. And we go to this URL. We have like the default example we can use. So this is now running inside the browser, and it is using the Kestrel web server to serve you the result. So how is this working? So I go back to my slides to explain a little bit more. So the command line tool we already used, .NET, and then some verb, and then some comments. And after we did this, I did the new, the restore, and the publish is not here, but that you can use to publish your web app or command line tool. So what do we get with ASP.NET Core is that we have hosting by Kestrel. We have middleware. Middleware is something I'm going to explain in another later slide. But basically, we add functionality to our pipeline so that we have functionality for logging or maybe for exception handling, or maybe something for the 404 page or something else you want to do. I think one of the main difference between ASP.NET full framework and core is that we integrated MVC and Web API in one base, so that you don't need to switch between them. So the application frameworks are now together as one whole. So when we come to serve our web pages to the end user, I told you that we have a built-in web server that's called Kerstal. Kerstal is nice when you are developing and trying out stuff on your local machine, but when you are doing stuff in production for real end scenarios, you don't want to use Kerstal yet on this moment because it is new, it is not hardened for the internet. So my recommendation is to use like IIS or maybe Apache as full-end web server for the front end, and then route all the requests to the Kerstal web server after you have your front-end web server, so that you are more safe on the internet than doing it directly to the Kerstal web server. So the middleware, that's like the pipeline, how the request is routing to your application. So the end user fires a request by their web server to your like proxy, and I call it IIS or maybe Apache as web server, and then the request will be forwarded to the Kerstal web server from ASP.NET Core, and then we have in your application the different middlewares, and that can be MVC, that can be logging or maybe optimization, all kinds of things you maybe need for your application. That is the middleware, the pipeline you request will be going inside your application. A request comes in, you can do some logic and it will be handled to the next middleware. So when you add middleware to your web application, it is very important that the right order is handled, because when you're maybe doing have a website that is logging is needed, and you do that like on the last step, then you have maybe lost control, because all the other middlewares are serving web pages, and the last middleware is maybe doing some login, and yeah, that's not handled. So if you do the login in the beginning, then your other middleware after that will be safe, because the login is the first thing that is needed. So optimization is maybe handled before and not after you did all the other kind of requests. So I will show you that in the code. I've created a web app. Yeah, it is here. A web app. So what you can do is first we open it in Visual Studio Code. So I will explain a little bit what is happening here. Yes, we want that and we want to restore. So Visual Studio Code gives me options to restore my NuGet packages, because I didn't run .NET Restore. Visual Studio Code noticed that and it helps me doing that. So, because I was lazy and now it has done that. So we still have our program. What we have in our program is our web host builder, and web host builder is basically the Kerstal web server we are going to use to serve the request to the end user. There, of course, also we need integration with Internet Information Services, because when the request is coming from the outside world, we don't want to do it directly to Kerstal. In this development example, we use it directly, but in production we're going to use IIS integration. And basically what this application in this main will do is start up the web server, and is going to use the startup class to add the middleware, what I was talking earlier about. So we go to the startup to see what's going on here. Basically, we have like two different functions we can do. We have our services we can add. In this case, I added MVC and I added Swagger. Swagger you need if you're building web APIs. Swagger is, I think, the default factor on, for web APIs to describe. I'm going to show you what Swagger is. So we added middleware, and then after that we came to configure maybe some additional steps. In this case, we don't need to do this. So I'm going to run this example. .NET run, and then it will start on the same port. Yeah. So we have localhost 5000, but it will give me an error because I'm using a web API. I didn't told this application what the startup page is, so there is no startup page to show. But my web API still works. So we use Swagger UI, that was the middleware I added to this application, and I created a simple web API that can handle persons and pets, not special. So I can fire a request to get persons from my backend, and I use DocumentDB as my backend server. Try it out. So it will give me some results back. When I building a web API, then you want to handle that maybe to other developers, and then Swagger can help you to document how this web API is working. But what I think is more important is that if you want to build a client application, and we're going to use Visual Studio for that. For example, I want to build a Windows 10 application, and I want to consume my web APIs. Normally what you are going to do is create some kind of a web client that will download the JSON from your web API and handles that, and maybe create classes for that. But when I want to develop, I'm very lazy, I want to generate all kinds of classes for me. So I start a blank universal Windows app. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to build a complete app. I want only to show you how easy it is to consume the web API in other kinds of applications. That is not only for Windows 10 available, you can also use it for iOS and Android applications. And he's almost ready creating my first project. And the nice part about this is that you still have a project with JSON file. So the Windows 10 applications you built are still also using .NET Core as underneath framework. So if you're building Windows 10 applications, then you're still also using .NET Core in the basics. So what we're going to do is add a REST API client, and then we passed in the Swagger file. So my web end is still running here. I'm going to add this Swagger file. That's everything by the default. And if you look here, so it will create for me a client with my models, my person and pets, and the client I can use in my application. So I didn't write any code, and still I get all the code I need to consume my API. Here's the all. You can see that he's added a REST client runtime to it. And then, for example, when I go to my main page and want to add some functionality, I can do F1 client. It's new. I'll make the font a little bit bigger for you in the back. It's example, kept person by ID, or I can't, yeah, here. I can use this call to get data from my backend API. So I didn't write any code to consume my APIs in the front-end client, but I generated with the REST API that is in Visual Studio. But you can still use it also for other platforms, for iOS and Android. But this talk is not about front-end clients, so we're going to close that. So a little bit history about the past. When we built frameworks, we used ASP.NET full framework. Then you choose, for example, 10 years ago for web pages, and maybe a little bit later for MVC, and also web APIs. But they are different and a little bit similar. So we have razor pages, HTML helpers, controllers, actions, filters, and dependency injection. But they are not in all cases the same, and they are not compatible in some cases with each other. So in ASP.NET Core, we integrated all those different stuff in one version, so you can mix and match. For example, I showed you a web API. I can add a controller to it so that I can show you MVC with razor pages. So basically, you have one application that can handle the 3 types of different scenarios. Tag helpers is something that is different in this change compared to the full ASP.NET framework. In the past, you need special tag helpers in your HTML, what is completely different. Nowadays, you can use like more HTML5 style tag helpers that is easier to use for also non-developers. So a little bit of the roadmap. We are now on version 1.0. Somewhere in the end of this year, maybe beginning next year, we're going to add new functionality to ASP.NET Core. One of the things I like is the URL rewriting. It's, I think, a very thing what we are going to need. And of course, we're going to improve integrations with cloud and also authentication libraries that are very important. Now, I did show you all kinds of stuff in the command line tool, but nowadays we're going to use Visual Studio. So what we can do in Visual Studio, if we do File, New, Project, and then we go to .NET Core, and then we can choose between if we want to build an ASP.NET Core web application on top of .NET Core or on top of .NET Full Framework. The only difference between those two is that if you're using the full framework, then you can only run it on Windows and you can use legacy libraries. If you use the core functionality, then you can run it on multiple platforms, and of course you have some trouble with adding maybe some legacy libraries. In the example I used a document DB from Azure that is not on this moment available for the .NET Core framework, so that I used the full framework to do that example. So when we go to select this, okay, we can choose about 3 different types of applications. You can start very basically with an empty application, or with the web API I showed you already, or with the full application. I choose this now. So what you're going to see now, if I'm very quick, in the right corner, I don't know, is this yellow bar, and it's now restoring my packages. That's the same thing what I did on a command line by .NET Restore. Visual Studio is doing that, and when he is finished, he added all kinds of libraries to my project, and you can see that in the let's see, my project.json file. Close the zoom. So we have this basic application that has MVC in it, and authentication, logging, and other things like static files. So all the libraries we are going to use, what are NuGet packages that we describe in this project.json file, that will be added to this project. But if we go to edit this file, for example, when I go to remove this line, this library will also be automatically removed from Visual Studio. Just when I do Ctrl+X and save it. So Visual Studio notes that it will be removed from a project, and after he is finished, this example will not work, of course, but I put it back, save it again, and Visual Studio will edit the library back. So we will do a new NuGet package downloading. Of course it is in cache, so it will not be in real download. Now after this, I'm going to run this application. I can run it in Internet Information Services, Express, IIS. But how does that work? IIS Express, that will not run or host this application. It's still on command line like DOSBox tool. So I have a web.config, and the web.config is only doing forwarding the request to the command line version of my web app. So it's the Crystal web server that is inside my application that will be handling the request. So when I start with IIS Express, you can see it in the bottom here when it is starting. You can see IIS Express is now started. It opens Internet Explorer and will show you my web application. Yeah. So what is now happening? I see the result in Microsoft Edge in your web browser. The requests are forwarded to Internet Information Express in this case, and after that, the web.config will forward all the requests to my real application. In this case, the Castle web server in my application will handle all the requests, and I can prove you that by going to my program.json. That is my main, so that's the start of my application, and all the requests are handled by the Castle web server. Now I go to the startup.json, and I see that this application has MVC added as middleware, and I have some additional stuff like static files, some routing I need for my controllers and actions that are handled. But when I use Internet Information to run this application, I can start it and I can edit it, so I don't need the watcher I showed you in the beginning. So I can change stuff in my code, and I go to my browser and I see the result without doing recompile, because that will be handled underneath. The other advantage is to use a web server in front of this when my application dies, because there are some exception or I did bad programming. It will not start again. When I use a web server in front of that, he is responsible for starting up my application again. So when my application gets an exception and it quits somehow, the web server notes that, and he will start up a new process of my application so that it will not be down for the end user. But maybe I don't want to use an Internet Information Server. I can change it here to Web Application 1. So basically when I come to run it now, it's going to open a DOSBox. You get it pretty quick. This DOSBox is basically doing the same stuff what I did before by hand, but now Visual Studio is doing that. So my application is now running without using Internet Information Services. thing that is also different is because normally when you add like static files like images, style sheets, maybe plain HTML pages to your project, they will not be served to the end user. To get those types of files served to the end user, we need also a little bit of middleware, and we can see that in the startup.json, and then you see that we are using static files. If I comment out this static files functionality, my application still works, but it will be looking very ugly. I'm going to try to show you that. Use Express, yeah. Start it again, and now it will show you a very ugly page because all the images and style sheets are missing because they will not be served again because there are static files. That's maybe the case now. So, yeah. So this is all the images and style sheets are static files, so they are not downloaded because the middleware I commented out and are not visible anymore. To make your web application very quick, be careful what kind of middleware you add to your project. Only add what your server want to use. Every step you add here creates a little bit of latency or maybe also security holes if you're using external middleware, or maybe you write your own. The middleware I'm using here are coming from Microsoft in this example, but you can also create your own middleware because, for example, you want authentication especially for your own situation that is maybe that unique, that is not a default. You create your own middleware and add it to the pipeline, and then all the requests will be handled with your middleware. It's very important what the order is of this middleware, because when I add this MVC on the end, it will handle all the requests for my MVC controllers, but when I put it maybe on the top, then the static files is the last one, and then it will not come there because all the requests for MVC will be handled first, and then it returns to the end user, and then all the static files requests coming in, they will be handled. They cannot be handled because they are not in the pipeline on the right order. So this is a little bit an introduction of what ASP.NET Core and ASP.NET Core can do for you, because multi-platform open source, we have seen the different toolings from command line, Visual Studio Code, and the full-blown Visual Studio. When you are developing and want to use the full version of Visual Studio, you can go to visualstudio.com and you can download there the free version for, that's called the Community Edition, and then you have basically the same stuff that I'm using here. Are there any questions? No. Thank you for your time.